What's happening, everybody? Brent Axe here from syracuse.com, and we are back live here on the syracuse.com Syracuse Orange Facebook page following an 85-70 loss by the Orange to Boston College tonight at the Conte Forum in Boston, Massachusetts. And the big question is, has the bubble burst for the Syracuse basketball team? It's looking more and more likely like a postseason berth for the Orange will be once again in the dreaded three-letter tournament in the NIT instead of the NCAA tournament, short of a very deep run in the ACC tournament and, of course, a win over Clemson on Saturday, which looks pretty difficult at this point for the Orange coming off this loss to Boston College. So welcome back here, kind of a late-night Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel style Conan O'Brien version of the Facebook Live here as we're coming at you late after a 9 o'clock tip. And we're glad you're here, so leave your comments as we go along here. Please like and share this post if you're watching us live here. Let people know that we're here doing the Facebook thing and chatting with you after this game. So Syracuse loses 85-70, and it's looking pretty bad for the Orange in terms of the postseason. There is a slim margin for error in a log-jammed ACC. Losing to Boston College certainly is a bad loss for the Orange in a lot of ways. It's a quadrant 2 loss if you're keeping track of the quadrant stuff. Thanks to everybody who watched our video today, by the way. That is up on syracuse.com if you want to watch a video that I put out today about explaining the quadrant system. But, is it going to matter is the question now, because Syracuse has set itself up with a situation where, of course, they've got to beat Clemson on Saturday at home, and they've probably got to win at least 3 games in the ACC tournament to even just be back in the conversation. That's how critical this game was tonight. ESPN put out a stat about, in percentages and rankings, and some of these things are just stats, and you can't put a lot of faith into them. But, if Syracuse had won this game, their NCAA tournament chances were about 70% had they continued to take care of business and do the things they needed to do. It's now under 20%. They'll fall out of the bracketology rankings, the bracket matrix, everything that we track this time of the year. Syracuse is one of those first 4 out, right on the brink. They're going to fall lower than that at this point. So really, what they've got to count on here is a bailout in the ACC tournament, which is not going to be an easy thing to do for this team, particularly when they are a 3-man team. And that's what we saw tonight. And that is the thing. This is a Syracuse team that – go back to the Boston College game the first time around, okay? That was a game where everybody who walked on the floor had double figures. Now, mind you, it was about a month ago. It was coming off a week off for the Orange. It was a totally different time for the Orange. But what we saw tonight was that 3-man team again. And Jim Boeheim just said it at his press conference. It's pretty concerning when you've got a situation where – pretty concerning where you've got a situation where only 3 guys can score on this team. And you don't need that much from Pascal Chukwu and Merrick Dolezaj and Matthew Moyer. Matthew Moyer, who scores 20 points, plays 20 minutes and scores 2 points and grabs 1 rebound. Pascal Chukwu getting contributions here and there, right? Dolezaj was starting to show that he could hit that shot kind of near the foul line and contribute, but you're getting nothing from these guys on the offensive end, and they have just gone downhill the past few games. So you're leaning so heavily on Tyus Battle, O'Shea Brissett, and Frank Howard, who came through tonight in the sense that Tyus tried to will this team to victory on his own. He scores 29 points. Frank Howard had 17 points. O'Shea Brissett had 18. But you're just asking too much for 3 players to carry this team. And it's, Boston College, we knew could shoot the ball. If there's one thing Boston College could do, they can shoot. And they've got Kai Bowman and Jerome Robinson, 2 of the top scorers in the ACC. Boston College tonight, 14 of 27. 14 of 27 from three-point lane. And Syracuse, the last time around, if you'll remember, BC started hot from the three-point line, and Syracuse pushed the zone out and kind of put an end to that. But the big thing about the first Boston College matchup was Syracuse shot 64%. They shot 55% from three-point range. And as mentioned, everybody that hit the floor, with the exception of Matthew Moyer in that game, had double figures in scoring. Complete opposite tonight. Only 3 guys scored. BC's hitting from 3 every time Syracuse even made a rally or even threatened to make this a game. Robinson, Bowman, Chapman, somebody's hitting the three-pointer for Boston College tonight. And I wondered about that. I discussed it on the radio a little bit coming into this game today. So you don't want to get in kind of a dueling piano situation with Boston College from the three-point line if they get going. But Boston College wasn't a very good defensive team, so all you needed was even 2 out of the big 3 between Battle, Brissett, and Howard to score, and just contributions from somebody else. And Syracuse didn't get that. So you got a team that's coming down the wire here that for the first time since they've entered the ACC is going to go into is going to end ACC play with a losing record. So they're now 18-12. They're 7-10 in ACC play, even if they could somehow pull off a win over one of the better teams in the ACC on Saturday against Clemson at home. So now you're talking about a 19-win team that's 8-10 in the ACC going to Brooklyn for the ACC tournament. And, Syracuse, their bubble situation was a little dicey even coming into this game because they're 0-6 against the top 25 this year. They only have 2 quadrant 1 wins, and those are both teams that were pretty decent road wins, Miami and Louisville. But, there's no standout real big win for the Orange. And now you've got to get that Saturday against Clemson, and you've got to pick up 1 or 2 in the ACC tournament and hope the selection committee puts some kind of emphasis into the conference tournament, which they don't always do. So, bottom line, this is the 4th straight year that Syracuse has been on the bubble. And, the result of that has been, let's look at them. In 2015, they couldn't even go to the tournament because of their own self-imposed ban. In 2016, they sneak in as a 10 seed and go to the Final Four. In 2017, a lot of people thought they were in, Joe Lenardi included from ESPN. They didn't get there. And now it's 2018. Syracuse is not only on the bubble, they're kind of out of the scenario now. And the only thing they've got left is kind of break that glass in case of emergency and make a real deep run in the ACC tournament, which you're not going to be able to do if you can't have more than 3 players put the ball in the hoop. And for Jim Boeheim to say at his press conference that people think Pascal, Matthew Moyer, and Merrick Dolchai can score, they can't. I mean, man, we're about to flip the calendar to March. Okay, it's 11:30 as we speak here on Facebook Live. It's March and a half hour, and you got 3 guys that are spotty on the offensive end. That's a tricky thing for Syracuse. You got to wonder how you can go that deep into a season and you have 3 players that play significant minutes, even on a team that's not very deep, okay? And you've got to be fair about that and note that. And, Barama has the knee situation that flares in and out, and he's just not reliable in that sense. You got 3 guys that are just completely unreliable on the offensive end. That bewilders me that you can have that. And you lean so heavily on O'Shea, Tyus, and Frank to put all the scoring out there. It's almost remarkable that they've made it this far and have been in the conversation this deep, knowing that they're that limited on the offensive end. So just a couple more things to note here, and then we'll go over some of your comments and see what you guys are saying here. You guys have been commenting all along here. Boston College shot 48% overall, and again, that flips the script on the first game. The first game against Boston College, Syracuse was the team that shot 64%, 55% from three-point range. Boston College tonight, they scored 26 field goals in this game, and 19 of them were assisted. Their ball movement was beautiful. North Carolina, the same thing, going back a game before the Duke game for the Orange. Duke obviously wasn't very good offensively, but still squeezed off a 60-44 win over the Orange. This has been a problem against that zone defense that really held Syracuse up for much of the season, but has just not been there the past few games. I think the Duke game was more of a situation where they just couldn't hit shots, and that carried over to the Virginia Tech game on Monday when the Hokies beat them 64-63. So that Syracuse defense is starting to break down a little bit. The first Boston College game, they got out on the shooters. They kind of took them out of it. This game, every time Syracuse tried to get close, Bowman or Robinson or somebody's hitting a 3, and they were often uncontested 3s. They were often open shots. How many times did Boston College just kind of glide through the lane and get an easy shot? So the defense broke down there. We mentioned what the big 3 did tonight. Bowman for Boston College at 23, Robinson at 22, Chapman had 18. That's their big 3. They all came through. Syracuse had 15 turnovers in this game, and I believe that was 17 points off turnovers that Boston College got there. It's 19, actually. Syracuse had 15 turnovers, led to 19 points off turnovers. Now, Syracuse got 18 points off turnovers in this game. So they kept pace in that department, but it didn't really matter much. This was a team, I brought up the ball movement for Boston College. Syracuse just flat-footed on offense, not moving around. Merrick Dolzaj, Pascal Chukwu, Matthew Moyer in particular, not even trying to get open or set picks or try and get people going. Same thing on the defensive end tonight. Nobody's blocking out. It was just, there was a real lag out there. There was a real lag. You don't want to say they're not trying. You don't want to say they're not playing hard, because I think they're still playing hard. But you could just see a dispirited team out there as Boston College just kept hitting shots, kept hitting shots, kept hitting shots. So, look, Syracuse's postseason life right now, is we can surely tell, is it's on life support. It's really a 3-game deep run in the ACC tournament, and then you kind of hope that they take pity on you. So the reality is that Saturday might not be the last game at the Carrier Dome this year. If Syracuse, of course, goes to the NIT and is a high seed in the NIT and gets a home game in the NIT, which is probably looking like the likely scenario right now. Not completely over. Season's not completely dead and buried here, but it's on life support, and that machine's beeping, and they're calling in the doctors, and they're yelling clear on this team in terms of the NCAA tournament. So let's go through some of your comments here. Tiffany says, play Brandon Bayer, can't be any worse. Kid can shoot. I mean, if you need shooting, but who does he play over at this point, I guess, is the question. Foul Breeze says, every team Syracuse played a player got a career high on them. A lot did. There's a lot of those guys that sneak off the bench and do that. There's something about that teams just take advantage of that against Syracuse. You're focusing so much on key players and other teams. These guys kind of sneak out there, and it's often guys that can shoot, right? They can come off the bench, get a few quick threes, and all of a sudden, you're contending with a player maybe you didn't think you had to. Mary Ellen says, can't handle the ball, no slick passing like other teams. They hold on to the ball too long. And that's been a problem all year. That's been something we've seen. And sometimes that ISO play works. I mean, Tyus Battle at 29 points tonight. And sometimes you just got to get out of the way and let him do his thing. But, to watch other teams, I mean, this is a Boston College team that's 16-13, 6-10 in ACC play. They're not a very good defensive team. We know they're a good offensive team. But just to see the ball movement and the things that they can create, it's befuddling how that lags for Syracuse this time. And I guess it's not befuddling in the sense of if those three other players, Chukwu, Matthew Moyer, and Dolzaj in particular know that the offense is 90% of the time going to run through the other three, they're not even going to try to get open and get the ball because they know they're just not going to be a part of the offense. Let's see. Scott says staying will not help unless he has a better cast around him. Otherwise, more of the same. I think you're talking about Tyus Battle there, right, Scott, about staying here or not staying here. Keith says bring in Buzz Williams. Well, as long as Buzz stays on the sideline and doesn't, sweat through 3 shirts a game, maybe we'll think about that. Somebody in the live chat said bring in Brad Stevens because Brad Stevens is going to leave the Boston Celtics to come to Syracuse. I got 4 words for you on that. Good luck with that, right? Let's see. Michael Antonio says, I'll predict it now. A light will come on with this team, and they'll blow the doors wide open from here on out. Keeping the faith that the Orange are going to make a run here. We'll see about that. Chris mentions that BC is a smaller team. I mean, Kai Bowman in particular there, Christopher. There was that one play. Kai Bowman just soared right through about 3 guys and got that, rebound dunk. Not to mention he's hitting threes, even sometimes with a guy in his face. I mean, he's got that red hair, which is fantastic as well. What a great offensive player. Kid plays with a smile on his face the whole time as well. So you wonder how, if Jerome Robinson played at Duke or Clemson or, one of the top teams in the league, he'd be the player of the year. But because you play at Boston College, you're kind of isolated there, and they're not a team that, garners a lot of attention. They will tonight with this win. But, I mean, he's arguably the ACC player of the year if he's on a better team. But, when you play in a league that's got a lot of superstars at a lot of high-profile schools, he's going to get pushed down the list tonight. But he and Kai Bowman were certainly stars for Boston College tonight. Let's see. Rob says, I feel like lying on Dr. Axeman's therapy couch at this point. Yeah, come on by. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. Syracuse fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I think we've come as far as we could given the team we have this year. I almost think they've overachieved. It's a fair point to say this team's overachieved given that. But let's just take a step back here. They lost Torian Thompson, at the beginning of the year who really would have helped in a game like tonight, would have given Syracuse an inside-out presence. So he's gone. Geno Thorpe leaves during the season, giving Syracuse almost no depth at guard to start with. Then Howard Washington gets lost for the year with an injury. So now you literally have no depth other than Braden Baer, somebody brought up in the chat a little earlier. So the fact that it got whittled down to 7 guys, Barama came right to the 11th hour. They almost medically redshirted him, which would have left you with just 6 guys. So the fact that they did kind of will their way this far into the conversation in the NCAA tournament, just to make it to the last regular season game of the year, still on bubble watch and still in all these bracketologies, it is remarkable in a way. And Jim Boeheim even said it at his press conference that he can't get mad at this team because of how hard they play for him. The effort has been there all year, but attaboys don't get you into the NCAA tournament, right? So, I mean, that's noteworthy, and that's a fair point to bring up, Rob. But, we know what the bottom line is. You got to make the tournament. You got to make the tournament. And this is going to be, 3 out of the last 4 years that Syracuse has not made it. But the one time they did in that stretch, they went to the Final Four. I don't know. I mean, it's just the way it's been around here as of late. What else are you guys saying here in the comments? I remember when every year the expectation was the tournament. It used to be just normal around here, right? You'd know you'd make the tournament. Syracuse basketball was clockwork. 20 wins, tournament, go. And that just hasn't been the case the last 4 years. I saw somebody bring this up in the comments while we were kind of scrolling along here. The sanctions have to be kind of brought into the conversation because of the scholarship limitations, and Syracuse is behind the 8 ball in a sense there. That's fair to bring up. So what this does now is it puts a lot of pressure on next year's team because you're out of the sanctions completely. You've got a top 10 recruit in Darius Basley coming in. You've got a 4-star player in Jalen Carey coming in. Buddy Boeheim comes in next year, and he can shoot the lights out. By the way, he might get redshirted if you bring everybody back from this team. And I would imagine most of the players from this team will be back. I think Tyus Battle is going to go through the NBA testing process, as he should, to hear what scouts and GMs will tell him about his game. But he's going to hear he's got a late second-round grade. The scout that I talk to regularly, I call him the scout who knows, says he'd be lucky to go in the mid to late second round at this point. There's just parts of his game, his handle. He has to round out some things before he's considered a first-round pick. So, I never like to assume anything because players just make decisions on what's best for them. But assuming everybody's back, that's a pretty deep team that comes in next year. And it just sets the expectation because it gets rid of excuses. The sanctions are gone now. You've got a high recruiting class coming in. You've got a deep team next year. They're going to go from a depleted team to a deep team next year. It's going to put a lot of pressure on next year's team to get back to normal around here, which we just brought up in the comment about, look, going to the tournament used to be normal in this sense. Let's see. Jeff says last place. The numbers don't lie. This team stinks. I mean, yeah, the record stinks. And the way they play stinks sometimes. But does this team stink? 18-12, 7-10 in the ACC. Yeah, I've seen worse. Who stinks? Pittsburgh. They stink. That's a team like if you were a Pitt fan, you bailed on that and started studying the Steelers draft propositions like 3 months ago. At least Syracuse, has gotten this far and this point. I mean, they're disappointing. I'm not trying to make excuse for them, but do they stink? I mean, given they only got 7 players and kind of got blood from a stone at this point, I don't know if that's how I label it. Let's see. What else we got in the comments here from you guys? I like these arguments that are going on here. Keith says, Jimmy's the problem. It's all a Boeheim problem. Okay, well, you feel that way, you feel that way. Keith also says they only ever have 7. That's a fair point. Even if Jim Boeheim's got 14 players, somehow it always whittles it down to 7 or 8 guys in the rotation. It just so happens that this year, that's all he had on this team. I think it's fair that there is some pressure on Boeheim. And look, they brought this guy back for 5 more years. At least that's what we think the contract is. This was supposed to be the last year. Mike Hopkins moves on. Boeheim's back for what we think at least is the stretch of the Buddy Boeheim era here at Syracuse. So, figure about 4 or 5 years there, 5 if he redshirts. And, even with the sanctions and everything else, they've been in the NIT conversation 4 years in a row. That's not the standard around here. Syracuse basketball has higher standards than that. But, all these Boeheim must go and some of the opinions that people have. It's like, we've made it this far, barring just an utter collapse. Why would you fire the guy or move on from him or shove him out the door at this point? I mean, it's going to end at some point, right? Or it's going to be weekend at Bernie's. He's just going to be on that bench, and one day you're just going to kind of, Jim. He's just going to be there on that bench forever. So we'll see. But it doesn't change the pressure that gets put on next year's team. Next year's team has a ton of pressure on it, and I hate to just keep turning the page to next year, but let's be honest here. If they can't beat Clemson and can't spark something in the ACC tournament, wait till next year. We're Cubs fans pre-2017 2017 when they won the World Series, right? Oh, what else we got here? Christopher says Frank should be better with 3 point guards on the staff. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, because this year Frank knows no one's coming in for him. But you got a Jalen Carey over your shoulder. You got a couple of guards over your shoulder next year. If he has that, those possessions where he kind of turns the ball over and, going back to last year when he makes a mistake and he's looking like this for Jim to pull him out of the game. But another year older, another year wiser, another year better for Frank Howard next year. I think Jim will be a little more patient with him unless Jalen Carey comes in and really pushes and shows that he should be out there. And, Frank's not a true point guard. That kind of is a remarkable point in and of itself, that he's been handed the point guard reins and, wasn't really a point guard until he started playing it like 2 years ago at Syracuse. I mean, let's look at his stats from tonight. So, while we're talking about Frank Howard, here's a guy who tonight we mentioned he had 17 points in this game, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, did pick up 4 fouls in this game. And the big thing with Frank, you always have to look at his turnovers. He had 3 turnovers in this game. Considering that he has absolutely no depth behind him, he has no backup and has to go out there and, be amongst the leaders in minutes in the ACC and in the country. Tyus Battle leads the country in minutes at this point. The fact that Frank can hit that shot and can get inside and can distribute the ball and what he's doing considering the tools he's been handed, I've got to get him more credit than criticism at that point. It'd be one thing if, there were 3 other guards on this team and Boeheim was riding him for some reason. He doesn't. So considering, there's no one else and he's had to hold up the fort as much as he has, I'll give him some credit for that. I see some lacrosse talk going on here in the chat. Big comeback win in more ways than one against Army last weekend. You got Virginia coming up this weekend for the SU Lax team. I'm as curious as anybody. Who's with a real orange stand up? Was it the team that clobbered Binghamton, the team that came back against Army, or what's the happy medium there? If Don Madonna continues what he did in goal against Army, and Syracuse can get a little bit going on the face-off X and just can kind of wake the offense up, then that happy medium might be a pretty good team. But very early in the Lax season, we'll see how they do, right? All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight, guys. Appreciate you hanging out with us here late night as Wednesday becomes Thursday, as February becomes March here tonight. And unfortunately, it looks like the bubble may be bursting for Syracuse, short of a win over Clemson on Saturday and a deep run in the ACC tournament. Syracuse losing to Boston College tonight, 85-70, our final score from the Conti Forum in Boston, Massachusetts. The Orange fall to 18-12, 7-10 in ACC play. And the regular season finale, the home finale, Saturday at the Carrier Dome against Clemson. It's a 2 o'clock tip. We'll be right back here on Facebook Live after that game. Please look for our coverage, my recap, and everything from all of our great reporters on syracuse.com tomorrow, wrapping up this one and looking ahead to that Clemson game. Thanks to our friends at the Bill Rapp Superstore as well for sponsoring our Facebook Live here. We always appreciate that. And we'll be back at it Saturday as the Orange's NCAA tournament life is on life support at this point, short of a remarkable turnaround and run, and it's a regular season finale Saturday and a deep run in the ACC tournament. It's looking like another NIT run for the Orange after a pretty bad loss to Boston College tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us here on Facebook Live. We'll talk to you next time, guys.